Hi, my name is Mike, and I want to get on here today and tell a little bit about my story about my healing journey. I'd say it began about 4 years ago or so, almost 5 years ago, maybe 2017. But a year before that, in 2016, in spring, is when I got clean off drugs. And that's been a big part of my story, is the ins and outs of addiction, basically, in and out of treatment centers. And 2014 to 2016, when I got clean the last time, I was actually homeless. And for the first few months, living in my car. And then when the police took my car, I was literally on the streets. And when I was lucky, crashing on someone's couch or someone's floor. But pretty much hit my lowest low, rock bottom. And I could say that it was in my bloodline or this or that. And a lot of times in my life, I judged myself and thought there was something wrong with me and I was a complete failure and couldn't get it right. But through my healing these last few years, I've been able to realize a lot about myself and why I do the things that I do and why we as people do the things that we do. And we all have trauma. I'm pretty sure PTSD is a symptom of living on the planet. And we all have our own story. And mine started young. It's another thing that I didn't realize during my childhood and growing up. But now I'm covering all sorts of stuff. I'm realizing that my PTSD started somewhere when I was very young, before I had any memories, and it led to all sorts of behavior, but basically living very fast, always wanting to be on the go. And when I was a kid, I started working young at 13, and I pretty much consistently stayed working and school events and always hanging out with my friends. And I wasn't really into sports in school, but I did snowboard, and I loved hanging out with my friends and skateboarding and snowboarding, and I stayed busy. I just had to go, 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 go. And so in high school, that led to partying, and afterwards, harder drugs, and it just became my method of self-medicating. But just a little bit more about my life. In high school, before I graduated, I joined the National Guard, and so I served a few years with the Army National Guard. And 2005, a short period of time, I was with my unit in Iraq. I didn't spend the entire time of the deployment with them, but I did get a taste of it and get my own little bit of PTSD, which coming back, and I just didn't understand, because I didn't know that I had trauma from childhood that bled into ongoing traumas that just kind of continued to pile on. And so when I first started hearing the term PTSD tossed around, all I knew was Iraq. And I didn't really think that, childhood abuse and the things that I had gone through, or that I knew I'd gone through, it just wasn't even a thought in my mind. So it was confusing, like the amount of PTSD that I had, but for the short amount of time that I'd served. And it was confusing. And it was something that I struggled with for a really long time. But so I always coped with that fast life, and it got me in a lot of trouble at different times in my life, honestly. And it it ended my military term earlier than I had originally intended, which was a blessing in disguise for me, because I had actually served 6 years honorably, gotten out, and then I got back in because I heard that my unit was redeploying to Iraq again, and I was already getting into a pill problem at the time, and I thought that was going to be a remedy. Just getting out of town or whatever, but adding way more trauma probably wouldn't have been the best thing for me either. But it was a blessing in disguise, because that's what started my series of treatment centers, which I think I've been to 5 or 6. And, again, each time I failed, and, I thought I was a failure and couldn't stay sober or whatever. But this last time, something happened to me actually when I was in the streets. Somewhere around the end of 2014 or 2015. I don't know exactly how to explain a lot of it, because it's pretty bizarre experiences, but basically everything shifted for me. And the way that I think, the way that I feel, the way that I process everything about the outside world around me, everything shifted. And it was almost like there was like a different soul transferred inside my body or something. And I literally feel like I've been a different person since 2015. And so I still kind of bumped across the bottom there for a little while, but my intuition started screaming at me so loud I couldn't ignore it, and it was saying, go back to treatment, go back to treatment. And I was like, I've done that, I've been there. I feel like I've learned everything. One of the treatment centers I went to was an entire year, and so it's probably closer to 18 months of my life that I've been at treatment centers, and I've learned a lot about addiction. And I wasn't sure what else there was left for me to learn, but honestly, I don't know if I did learn much new that last time, but it was what I needed to do to take a step of faith, more or less, to get out of that life. And ever since then, everything has changed dramatically and very significantly. But I still feel like I'm picking up the pieces. And so along with this spiritual awakening or whatever I've been going through, that's just like also, but it was the catalyst for my healing journey. And basically throughout my life, in my mid-20s and since my mid-20s, I have been in counseling and therapy and seen psychiatrists at different times. And sometimes it was because to try to repair a relationship and my symptoms of PTSD were getting a little too out of hand, or sometimes it was to see a psychiatrist to get a bottle of pills, chasing my addiction. And whatever the reason was, I had just been around counselors and people of all sorts of titles for a while. But I obviously wasn't ready, because I didn't ever fully open up and trust anybody. And so I just didn't really take any of it seriously. And so after I got clean this last time in 2016, that was the first time that I actually was honest about, I went in there with full intention of being vulnerable and being honest and starting to tell my story, which I was stuttering, and it was the first time that I had ever really owned up to my truth, especially to a stranger. But I don't know, it was kind of a horrible experience, to be honest, but maybe necessary in its own way. But it just, I didn't trust that person. And now I know that when you go to counseling, and if you don't get a match your first time, it's totally okay to kind of shop around and find somebody with a personality and a style that's going to fit for you. And that was really important for me to discover that, because everybody's different. and we're all different. So obviously the therapists out there are all going to be different. And um, so I waited a few months, and it was just kind of this intuitive thought that just kept nagging and nagging and nagging at me, and to go back, not to her, but to find somebody else. And I did. I made calls, set up an appointment, and I think it was I can't remember, someone downtown here in Spokane. I had an intake, and during the intake with the lady that was kind of interviewing me or whatever, somehow in the conversation, she had provided another list of other places that my insurance would take, and one of them happened to literally be in my neighborhood where I live, and like close, like a block and a half away. And so I said, no offense, lady, but I think I'm going to try with them. It just makes sense, At that time, I didn't have my a driver's license. It was suspended for a while at that point, and I didn't have a vehicle because the police had taken the one when I was homeless, and I've just didn't have the opportunity to work, or I've been on disability for a few years now, and that's been an absolute godsend, because I just hope I'm not going down any rabbit holes here. I have a tendency to do that. And I'm trying to keep it in a nutshell, my outline, but I've just kind of more or less on this healing path that I've been on now. I've had a couple counselors. I feel like I outgrew my fishbowl with the first one, but it was nothing wrong with her. It was just I was growing so quickly and learning so much about myself and healing, and really changing a lot very quickly. And it was just, I think it was a divine experience that I was time to move on to somebody else. And both of them were amazing. And actually the second one was so hardcore I had to stop. It was weekly for 8 months, a little over 8 months, and each week tore into stuff so deep that it would take weeks, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks sometimes, to fully process whatever had come up in that one session from a week. But then the very next week I would show up again like clockwork, and we'd drill into something different, and the next week something different, and the next week something different. And so a few months in, I started to notice that it was getting a bit too intense, but I had a fear of quitting for several reasons. And I thought that it was since I'm not working, and social anxiety and many other things are so intense, I don't know when I'll be able to work again. And so I feel like I needed to do whatever I could around my healing. And so I judged myself for thinking about taking a week off or hitting the brakes or anything like that. And I just kept going and going. And so it got to the point where I had to stop. I actually, I didn't fully burst out to her, the therapist, but I was getting very resentful of her. And it was nothing to do. She's great. She was actually very gifted and very amazing. But it was just, the stuff was so raw, and there were wounds, so it hurt. It was painful, very, very painful, and it was so much. It was excruciating, and I had to stop. And since then, I've been in therapy. I'm seeing a therapist now again for 8-9 months now, but it's somebody that doesn't drill so deep, and I did that intentionally just to kind of still have someone outside of my normal bubble that I can talk to. But yeah, I mean, and it's just a few years now that I've been taking this pretty seriously, and day to day today, moment to moment to moment, usually I feel stuck, very lost, stuck, confused, defeated, hopeless, depressed, anxious, blah, blah, blah. There's many things. But for the most part, I would say what I feel is stuck. But when I can like take a moment and actually put myself back a few months, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year, if I can take a look at where I was at 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it really starts to help to put things into perspective a bit better. And so it's clear to me, and I have friends and great family and stuff that are really, really great support system, but they're really great at mirroring back and reflecting back to me through whether they tell me or just their actions. They show me my progress. The fact that they trust me again. I mean, I'm a recovering addict that had been in and out of treatment, had to go home several times, lied to everybody, stole from anybody, whatever to feed my habit at many times. And so when they opened their door to me and wanted me around and enjoyed my company and trusted me again, that showed me, and it's hard not to see that. Well, that's not true, because when you're depressed, it's hard to see anything good sometimes. But long story short, I'm just at a weird point right now. I feel stuck, but something happened to where I fully committed, and I told God, I told the universe, I told myself that this is it, that I'm gonna shed layer by layer by layer, and as long as it takes, this is what I'm gonna do. And the floodgates opened. Something happened to where the floodgates opened, and it's a blessing and a curse because the blessing is that I get to heal now, and healing affects everybody involved in any of my traumas, any of my experiences. That's how it works, and that's something that God has shown me, and that makes it so much more worth it, because I mean, healing our own wound, that's powerful. But when it not only heals and affects ourselves, but everybody involved, past, present, future. And so it's pretty incredible, and it's hard to put words to it, but I've been shown some things that I can't really unsee, and it just makes this whole path very worthwhile. But it doesn't change the fact of how difficult it is. And so that's kind of why I want to start talking about it. And a couple weeks ago, I finally made my little YouTube channel. And because my healing usually most commonly takes me out into nature. I love being on the road. The further away, the lighter and more free I feel, but that can also be a forest very close by too. And so I'm almost always in nature. You can see this tree and the rocks. I'm at this beautiful park, this nature area in Spokane, Washington, and yeah, it's just where I can really hear myself think and feel myself feel, I guess. There's so much noise out there in the world and in our lives, and the further away from traffic and voices of people and just the commotion of life, and the closer to the birds and the sound of water and the trees swaying and the wind, whatever, it's just where I feel more connected to myself and to God and to everything. And it's really opened up something. And so these floodgates have opened, and now kind of something, why I call it a curse, is something that occurs is that I get triggered all the time, which being triggered is something that we all deal with all the time. But no, I know what it used to be like, being normal, I guess. What's normal, right? But no,
having a normal lifestyle and being triggered by what people say or an event happening outside of me, and it triggers something that I didn't want to deal with, or a thought that I didn't want to think, or something that I didn't want to feel, so we avoid. But that's the thing, is that the things that I used to avoid, the list of them is rapidly decreasing, and it's much smaller than it used to be. And so a combination of that, but also the frequency of things being triggering, and it's all the time, and I know the purpose for it, because these things are things that we need to confront eventually. We need to feel the feeling and not avoid. We need to actually be very present and feel whatever is coming up. And these last few years, between therapy and holistic healing groups and spiritual centers and friends that I've made in person and online, books that I've read, YouTube videos, I'm just always like coming across new information, and I have a lot of tools now. And some of them, they're new tools, so maybe I'm not like really great at using them yet, but I'm practicing with them, and I am getting better. And I know that because just the other night I was triggered by something that had been eating me up for about a week, and I finally was able to sit through it, and it sucked. It really sucked. Just sitting there through the pain and through the waves of the pain. But the more that I just allowed myself to just kind of hold it and not judge it, but feel it and love it, and not try to like kick it to the curb and think that it needs to be thrown in the trash, but like integrate it into my being, something happens. And so, I've done this before, but it's just, it finally releases. And I slept like a baby that night, and the next morning I actually, for the first time in months, I woke up feeling rested. And so I know that this works. There's just so many, like, it's just so obvious to me, but it's hard. It's not easy. It's actually one of the most probably difficult things, aside from being homeless, going through a divorce, being in jail, in and out of jail, in and out of treatment centers, neglecting my daughter, adopting my son, which that's a whole nother story in itself. And in time I'll talk about all of these things, because that's my intention. And I'm going to kind of sum it up now, is that I hope I haven't rambled too much, but there's just so much that I've been through that I feel like I can relate with so many people on so many like life things. And I just know what it's like to just ignore and avoid and carry on life and try to act tough and bottle it up. And that shit does not work. And it will catch up. It caught up with me, I think, younger, because I was living life so fast, maybe just like recklessly, and never really like in one direction. It was never organized, but just wearing myself out. And so it just kind of pushed me into that corner a little bit quicker. But this is a messy process. Nothing about it's easy. Well, no, there is moments of easy where it's there's actually, it's not all hard. There's because as stuff releases, it's not all the grimy, ugly, messy stuff. For some reason, there's a lot of times that I think we've suppressed very joyful and blissful moments, or maybe that bliss got locked in because of other things or whatever. But energetically, they got stuck. And as I'm cutting through this onion of myself, sometimes this little pocket of bliss pops out, and it's funny and weird, because when it occurs, I'm just as dysfunctional as a bad panic attack or a really bad depressed day, because I'll be there sitting there like on my couch or on my bed, just shaking and like crying, snot flying out of my nose, but just feeling this intense joy, the most pure and like just the most pure bliss, ecstasy. This, I don't know how to, it's pure and natural. I mean, I'm not using drugs anymore. And these things just happen like seemingly out of nowhere, whether in the morning or in the middle of the day or in the middle of the night. My sleeping routine is like non-existent. There's not a routine. Being up at different hours of the night and stuff. It's just I'm going through a lot of changes, but that's my point. Is I want to talk about it. That's one of the hardest parts about this path for me, is that I've, not in an unhealthy way, but I have isolated, and I have friends, I have people in my corner that I talk to, and I know I have a larger friends and family in my support that support me, but I just feel like there's not a lot of people that really understand exactly what I've been going through. And I can't even say that I fully understand, but it's just a very strange experiences that I've been through. And so I feel like I've had to like really cut out just people and experiences, just a lot of outer influences to myself to really, for my healing. I think that that's just kind of what God has laid out with me for my plan. And but anyways, it gets lonely, and I know I have friends and people that I can reach out to, but it's not about a shortage of people. It's about me and this very weird place that I'm at in my head and in my being that I don't know how to explain very well, but it's just like I'm deep inside this cave, and I know how to pick up the phone and text somebody or call somebody or get on social media and, cry out for help. It's not about that. It's something inside me that I can't, and I don't know why. And it's not all the time, but it's many moments of many days where I just can't. But I'm getting used to it, and so it's okay, because I don't feel like this is permanent. I just feel like it's how it is right now. But with all this being said, and how lonely this is, but how fruitful this healing is, there's moments that I'm out on the road or out hiking or sitting on my inflatable kayak or next to a campfire, all these scenarios, next to a river, on the mountaintop, you name it. And I just, bing, and the light bulb goes off. And I just get these insights and these epiphanies and this clarity with chills, full body chills, and just this knowing that it's from our Creator. And there's just no words to, but there's, it's just been hard for me to share it, to relate it. And so I think right now I'm being guided to start sharing it and share my story and start talking about the messy stuff, and letting everybody know that, whether you know it now or not, maybe you do. And if you do, that's great. If you know how to process your emotions and feel your stuff, that's great. That's awesome. And I'm happy for you that you have that light to spread into your world. But it's not something that was super just natural for me. It's been a learning process, and just being vulnerable and learning that it's okay to cry. That's one thing, but then, because I got good at crying, but then I'd judge myself or feel all ashamed when I would cry in front of somebody else. So that's just stuff that's gotta go. If healing is the intention and getting back to my pureness is my intention, then but I'm doing that. And so there's just things that from time to time I'll be making videos and I'd like to share. And if nothing else, if I can say something that speaks to somebody and is helpful to one or two or more, then that's awesome. But the main thing here, and I don't know if I'm going to publish this video or not, but I think my voice is a little shaky, as if I might, because I'm nervous. But this is for me. This is, it's a way that I can share my solo journey publicly, but this is for me. This is stuff that I am healing through now, that I'll sit in my bathtub and cry under the shower right now. And I have messy days, depressed days. It's hard for me to get out of bed, or if I do, it's hard for me to get out of the apartment. This is real. This is stuff that I'm dealing with now. And so I don't know if I've said too little or too much, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and draw this to a close right now. And I just want to say that I love everybody. I love you all, and anybody who ends up watching this video, just whether you're my friend or family, if somehow it reaches somebody that I don't know, I love you. And we're all, ultimately, this planet is going to be going through a change that we're all going to be having to heal and come to terms with some of our past. And I just want you to know that if you ever want to talk, or if you have questions for me, that I'm here. But energetically, more than that, I'm holding space for everybody that's going through this journey now, or if they have already been, or if they're about to be. Just know that I'm asking God and your team of angels and spirit guides to just be with you and comfort you and guide you and protect you. And I wish that for everybody anyways. But yeah, with that being said, I just wish infinite love and blessings for everybody. And yeah, goodbye.